Good morning, everyone. We are going to start the event soon. To those who are still outside, you may join us as we are going to start. Thank you.
Good morning, Excellencies, honorable speakers, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. First and foremost, we would like to extend a very warm welcome to all of you for joining us today at the first offline regional event, the launch of Mind the Gap, Mapping Youth Skills for the Future in ASEAN Report, and the soft launch of Job Information Center, ASEANjobs.org, at the ASEAN Hall, ASEAN Secretariat Building. My name is Marwah Zanira.
And my name is Ayu Pratiwi.
And we will be the Master of Ceremony for today's event.
This event is part of Bridges to the Future ASEAN Youth Employment Program, a 2-year collaborative program, a partnership between ASEAN Foundation, Plan International, Yayasan Plan International Indonesia, Plan International Vietnam, and with support from Google.org.
Bridges to the Future ASEAN Youth Employment is a regional program that aims to support ASEAN youth in not only acquiring the necessary 21st century skills to re-enter the workforce, but also building a more sustainable and secure post-pandemic economy. The program hosts a series of market-driven vocational training and job matching sessions that targets vulnerable and marginalized youth in the region, especially Indonesia and Vietnam.
The launch of the Mind the Gap, Mapping Youth Skills for the Future in ASEAN Report will be marked with a presentation of key findings by the lead researchers. Additionally, the soft launch of ASEANjobs.org will be complemented by the ceremonial pressing of a button by the representatives of ASEAN Secretariat, ASEAN Foundation, and Google.
Apart from the launch of Bridges to the Future, ASEAN Youth Employment's Research Report and Job Information Center, we have the pleasure to inform you that we will also have an on-site panel discussion with the topic of Bridging the Future of ASEAN Youth, Supporting Youth Employment and Skills Development for an Inclusive Post-COVID ASEAN, involving speakers, both from public and private sector.
For all the guests joining us on-site and virtually, there are QR code and link prepared that will direct you to the research report, ASEANjobs.org, evaluation form, and Slido for you to drop the questions for the panel discussion. All of these can be found on the table for the guests attending on-site and on the screen for those joining online. For Q&A session with Slido, please mention your name, institution, and the name of speaker you want to raise your question to. Without further ado, it is our honor to invite His Excellency Eka Pantavong, Deputy Secretary General of ASEAN for Socio-Cultural Community, to the stage to deliver the opening remarks.
Dr. Yang Mei-ing, Executive Director of the ASEAN Foundation. Dr. Awas Sadusi, Secretary General, the Ministry of Manpower of the Indonesia, and the Chair of the Senior Labor Officials Meeting. Ms. Maria Ralik, Google.org, Lead for the Asia Pacific. Ibu Didini, Media Deputy, the Executive Director, the Plan International Indonesia. Distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. On behalf of the Secretary General of ASEAN, it is my pleasure to be here with all of you at the launch event of the Mind the Gap, mapping the youth skills for the future in ASEAN the report and job information center, ASEANjobs.org. I would like to congratulate the ASEAN Foundation for the launch of this timely report and the ASEAN Job the portal. Both the report and the portal highlight the important issues in the shaping the future of ASEAN, addressing the youth employment in the face of the global phenomenon of the COVID-19 pandemic and digitalization, among others. As we meet in this hall this morning, our region continues to steadily recover from the COVID-19 pandemic. I am pleased to share with you that ASEAN's total trade volume increased in 2021. And the ASEAN economy was estimated to grow by 5% this year. While indeed there were the economic downturns caused by the pandemic. ASEAN is on track in realizing the goals set out in the ASEAN Vision 2025. At the center of this economic growth is our youth population. Our youth comprises 31% of the total population of ASEAN, representing astounding the amount of potential. Our youth are also the digital native, making them the population that can gain the most from our region's digital economy, which is projected to reach $1 trillion by 2030. However, ASEAN's Youth Development Index in 2017 noted that the youth unemployment ratio of the ASEAN regional is deteriorating. More recently, the 6 ASEAN member states reported an increased unemployment rate between 1.8 to 3.8% in 2020 for males in the age group of 15 to 24 years old. The percentage is worse for females in the same age group, which reported the increased unemployment rate between 0.9 to 6.7%. In the same vein, the ILO in 2020 reported that the COVID-19 pandemic is disrupting the employment and undermining career prospects of the young workers, with the young women reporting the greater losses in productivity as compared to young men. ASEAN's commitment in addressing the youth unemployment is underscored in the ASEAN Declaration on the Culture of Prevention for a peaceful, inclusive, resilient, healthy, and harmonious society. Youth unemployment is recognized as one of the social economic problems that may manifest into the potential disruptor of peace and security in society. The declaration calls for the transformation from a reactive to the preventive approach in addressing those social economic problems, including youth unemployment. Therefore, our strategies in handling the youth unemployment should be holistic and adaptive to the changing world of work. Distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, in the face of the pandemic recovery and the rapid digitalization, adaptation of our education and training curriculum is very important to promote relevance and the versatility of young graduates in the shifting demands of the labor markets. Skills gap should be narrowed by the widening the access of the ASEAN's youth to science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, as well as technical and vocational education and training, or TVET. Involvement of the private sector is pivotal in promoting employability of the graduates through a smooth transition from school to work. Internship and apprenticeship programs need to be widely availed by the private companies in our region and embedded in TVET and university curriculum. This has become one of the priorities of the newly established ASEAN TVET Council. The regional study on enhancing the competitiveness of the human resources, which is now being jointly undertaken by ASEAN and the Republic of Korea, highlights the issue of the underutilization of youth workforce in ASEAN member states and recommends for the higher quality of the TVET programs. In this regard, the ASEAN skills competition can be used as a stimulus of the positive image and the quality of TVET among youth. Once every 2 years, Hundreds of the talented young people from all the ASEAN member states showcase their excellence in around 26 skills areas, including the engineering, the technology, ICT, construction and building the technology, transportation and logistics. I'm pleased to inform you that the 13th ASEAN Skills Competition will commence in 2023 in Singapore. I also wish to take this opportunity to let you know that the ASEAN Youth Index Phase 2 is being developed for the completion this year. In this Phase 2, the index will focus on the domains of ASEAN awareness, values, and identity, which will give us a better understanding of the affinity that our young people have towards ASEAN. Distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, I wish to conclude my remarks by highlighting that given the remarkable potential of our youth, we should join hands and work collectively in empowering our young population and enabling them to reach their full potential. Together, we can build an inclusive, resilient ASEAN community that engages and benefits our youth. My best wishes for the fruitful discussion today. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you, Your Excellency.
Next, it is our honor to invite Dr. Yang Mi Ang, the Executive Director of ASEAN Foundation, to the stage to deliver the opening remarks.
Your Excellency, Ekapap Pantavong, Deputy Secretary General, ASEAN for Socio-Cultural Community, Dr. Anwar Sanusi, Secretary General of Ministry of Manpower of Indonesia, SLOM Chair of Indonesia, Ms. Dini Widyastuti, Executive Director of Yayasan Plan International, Indonesia, Ms. Maria Relic, Google Org Lead, Google APAC, and also a special welcome to my Board of Trustees, Ambassador Samnan, Chair of CPR, and also Ambassador Myong Mint, PR to ASEAN from Cambodia, from Myanmar. Thank you. So a very good morning to all of you. It is my great pleasure to welcome all of you to the first offline regional event of Bridges to the Future, ASEAN Youth Employment, the launch of event of Mind the Gap, Mapping Youth Skills for the Future in ASEAN Report, and the soft launch of the Job Information Center, ASEANjobs.org. So, the COVID-19 pandemic has had a severe impact on young people. According to Asian Development Bank, the rate of unemployment has hit double digits at the height of the pandemic. In countries like Indonesia, the Philippines, Thailand, and Vietnam, 45% of job losses in 2020 affected young workers. So, furthermore, around 47% of working youth are employed in sectors most affected by COVID-19, with a disproportionate impact on young women workers. So as the world has started to take a step forward into the post-pandemic COVID era, the impact of the pandemic remains. The drastic change taking place in today's job market requires youth to adapt quickly, either by reskilling or upskilling themselves. All of us here have the responsibility and capability to provide them with a platform where they can empower themselves. This is especially important as young people are considered as the main target group for COVID-19 recovery plan in achieving a sustainable future. This is where the Bridges of the Future ASEAN Youth Employment comes into play. The program is implemented with one goal in mind: to support ASEAN youth in not only acquiring the necessary 21st century skills, which is to re-enter the workforce, but also building a more sustainable and secure post-pandemic economy. So in partnerships with Plan International, Yayasan Plan International Indonesia, and Plan International Vietnam, we support, with the support from Google.org, the ASEAN Foundation has worked to identify the most needed skills for vulnerable youth job seekers in this region, particularly in Indonesia and Vietnam, through market research, market-driven vocational training, and jobs matching assistance. This is in line with the region's shift towards digital transformation. I'm happy to convey that we have seen incredible results from the program in the last 2 years. In Indonesia itself, through the excellent work of Plan International Indonesia, the Bridges to the Future ASEAN Youth Employment has benefited more than 9,000 Indonesian youth through a combination of online webinars and job fairs taking place amid the pandemic. In Vietnam, in partnerships with Plan International Vietnam and local implementing partners, the ASEAN Foundation has organized a job fair and the first coaching class to empower 220 Vietnamese youth, with 111 of them youth with disabilities. We expect to benefit 1,600 more Vietnamese youth through our next series of job fairs and coaching classes in Hanoi in June and July. So today's launch of Mind the Gap, Mapping Youth Skills for the Future in ASEAN Report, and the soft launch of the Job Information Center, which is ASEANjobs.org, marks another significant milestone in the journey of Bridges to the Future, ASEAN Youth Employment. With the support of LOCA, the research report has been designed to provide a strong basis for the key stakeholders from 10 ASEAN countries to address the potential skill gap and enhance the labor market opportunities for underserved youth in this region. Furthermore, the ASEANjob.org website will serve as a sustainable solution to help young people in ASEAN to connect with employers from across this region and secure jobs opportunities. So as the website is still in its infant stage, I would like to encourage companies and organizations across this region to use this platform to reach out to more young candidates. So the success of addressing the unemployment issue in ASEAN will depend on the support and collaboration between the public and private sectors. So finally, I would like to thank our dedicated and committed partners and supporters for making this launch event possible. I would also like to convey my sincere appreciation to all the guests here and the participants who are watching online for taking your time, your busy schedule to support this event. So I hope that you will have a good sharing and exchange knowledge throughout today's event. Thank you. See you again later.
Thank you, Dr. Yang.
Next, it is our honor to invite Ms. Dini Widyastuti, Executive Director of Yayasan Plan International Indonesia, to the stage to deliver the opening remarks.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Distinguished guests, DSG Katab, Dr. Yang Mi Eng, Executive Director of ASEAN Foundation, Ibu Maria Ralik from Google.org, Lead for Asia Pacific, Dr. Anwar Sanusi, the Secretary General from the Ministry of Manpower of Indonesia, and also the SLOM Chair of Indonesia, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I'm so happy to be here. I would like to thank the ASEAN Foundation for inviting Yayasan Plan International Indonesia to this event. We are part of the Plan International that operates in more than 70 countries around the world. It is an honor for us to be here because since 2020, Plan Indonesia has been partnered with the ASEAN Foundation in the Bridges to the Future ASEAN Youth Employment Program in Indonesia and in Vietnam. But also in terms of the study, as Dr. Yang Meng has mentioned, also cover ASEAN, the whole region. The program is being carried out, of course, with the support of Google.org, the Google's philanthropic arms. Plan Indonesia Youth Employment and Entrepreneurship Team has spearheaded the program implementation in the ASEAN region and in Indonesia, in particular in Jabodetabek, in the surrounding Jakarta area. We consistently implemented the program to empower young people, particularly women and young women from marginalized families and people with disabilities, to obtain new skills and compete in the new market after the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, the challenge of being the last speaker is all the essentials, statistics have been mentioned by the previous distinguished speakers, of course. But I'd just like to add that for Indonesia, of course, like in other countries in the ASEAN region, the pandemic has impacted a lot of people throughout the society, but most importantly, young people and women. So recent statistics, for example, stated that approximately 8.4 million people are unemployed, including young people affected by the pandemic. So this is probably the size of one country in Europe. Imagine 8.4 million people. In the past 2 years, we from Plan and ASEAN Foundations and our other partners have also tried to contribute to the solutions through the program, Bridges to the Future. And also this program has supported, not just by us, but also various private sectors, communities, and government institutions to carry out the program missions. Up to 2020, we've trained more than 3,000 young people in the greater Jakarta area. And more than 900 of them receive employment opportunities from our partnering organizations. So there are 50 companies and 4 government institutions who have pledged the commitment to support this program, with 17 participating in giving the youth a chance to work, including also youth from disabilities. This problem is so big for us individually to tackle. Everyone needs to put their hands together to tackle these issues of unemployment, especially of young people. Today, of course, we welcome the launching of Mind the Gap, Mapping Youth Skill for the Future in ASEAN. As His Excellency Deputy Secretary General has mentioned, that the study showcases news, information on the market demand for digital talent, and you highlighted, DSG, about the needs for adaptation. The study mentions the importance of inclusive, gender-responsive work capacity training for future regional talent to ensure that no one left behind. It is important for us. This study gives us food for thought for our program development for youth employment and entrepreneurship. We would also like to congratulate the BTF Bridges to the Future project team of Plan Indonesia and the ASEAN Foundation for the launching of ASEANjobs.org, the Job Information Center. We hope that this platform will provide more access to work for young people in ASEAN, especially in Indonesia. As the study suggests, we must continue to empower young people who still have a long journey ahead of them. We must empower, protect, and enable them to gain equal access to decent work regardless of status and age. As part of this commitment, Plan Indonesia team will be holding its second Bridges to the Future virtual job fest on June 22nd to 23rd. The event hosts employment opportunities for more than 5,000 young job seekers in the Greater Jakarta region. We hope this initiative will contribute to the ASEAN community's collective efforts in providing support for young talents in the region. We would also like to call for continuous improvement even after the Bridges to the Future initiative ends in September 2022, because the task ahead of us is still big. Together, let's continue to strive for a just world, including for young ASEAN talents. Only then we will be able to achieve the Global Sustainable Development Goals, including goal number 8, decent work and economic growth, and goal number 10, reduce inequalities. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dini.
It is our honor to welcome our next speaker, Ms. Maria Ralik, Google.org lead for Google APAC, who will deliver her opening remarks through video message.
Hello, everyone. I'm Maria Ralic, and I'm the Asia Pacific lead for Google's philanthropy, Google.org. It is my true pleasure to be here to deliver a few words at the launch event of Mind the Gap, Mapping Youth Skills for the Future in ASEAN Report and ASEANJobs.org. This event is part of the 2-year collaborative initiative between Plan International and ASEAN Foundation, who created Bridges to the Future ASEAN Youth Employment Program that Google.org has been supporting. I would like to first acknowledge how these hard times of pandemic has been really challenging for many of us, including for young people who are about to take a step to their career gate. The pandemic has also led to so much loss of important things in life, including loss of jobs and times of developing ourselves to keep striving. I'm genuinely grateful to the ASEAN Foundation and Plan International for launching this report and giving us a clearer picture on how to support ASEAN youth to be more resilient in getting prepared for their brighter future. We are making a real progress as a global community on a range of different and critical issues, including youth unemployment across the region and through this initiative in Vietnam and in Indonesia. So let me share a couple of stats about this initiative. Bridges to the Future has reached more than 4,000 youth through youth recruitment and has been running this campaign to engage with ASEAN youth. Approximately more than 2,000 youth have enrolled in and completed the trainings, both soft and technology trainings. Also, Bridges to the Future has been providing well-being support covering various topics, including mental health and well-being, self-potentials, job searching techniques, and many others. Almost 100 private sector partners have signed the MOU to join this initiative, and hundreds of youth were hired by these people. Besides private sector, more than 40 organizations and government representatives committed to contributing to this initiative and bridging the youth to their future careers. Looking at the inclusive approach of this program, Bridges to the Future has reached more than 160 young people with disabilities. They have done that through a wide range of activities and support, including the job fairs both in Vietnam and in Indonesia. ASEAN Foundation has gone through a process of wrapping up the research and developing a job information center, ASEANJobs.org. And those results have proven that the ASEAN youth are going into the right direction. And they do need to continue to get a greater access to their future careers. At google.org, we strongly believe that the current trends of the job market and skills demand should be recognized by youth. That is why we are more than optimistic that this event can be a strong foundation, boosting more collaborative actions among actors on supporting ASEAN youth. And we believe that Mind the Gap, mapping youth skills for the future in ASEAN Report can be a strong vehicle for this young generation to get to their destination, which is a successful career journey in spite of all of the challenges that they've been facing. We are so proud that we are able to witness this development of a new platform for young people. This Job Information Center can be a great platform for ASEAN youth, not only to find job opportunities and enhance their willingness to reskill and upskill, but also to broaden their networking amongst youth and with various employers. So we hope that today's event marks a fresh start towards stronger and greater access for youth. And this event is a great example on how we can all combine the use of research, technology, and industry in driving change and helping people. Hopefully, today's event will inspire all of you attending today, not only youth across the region, but also all of the invitees, including potential employers and training providers. We believe that we can all contribute in addressing the youth employment, and we hope that these two great products, Mind the Gap, Mapping Youth Skills for the Future in ASEAN Report, and Job Information Center, ASEANjobs.org, will be helpful to the people here to drive more positive impact in the region. Once again, I want to thank you for having me today, and please enjoy the rest of the event.
Thank you, Ms. Maria. Finally, it is our honor to invite Dr. Anwar Sanusi, Secretary General, Ministry of Manpower of Indonesia and Slum Chair of Indonesia, to deliver a keynote speech about the ASEAN effort to improve the skills of the young workforce and create inclusive and productive employment opportunities.
Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. A very good morning. His Excellency Mr. Eka Pantafong, Deputy Secretary ASEAN for Socio-Cultural Community, Honorable Dr. Yang Mi Eng, Executive Director of ASEAN Foundation, Ibu Dini Widyastuti, Executive Director of Yayasan Plan Internasional Indonesia, Honorable Ms. Mariza Ralis, Google Lead for Asia Pacific, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. First of all, it is a great honor to be invited to this event, the Bridge to the Future Asian Youth Employment launch event of Mind the Gap Mapping Youth Skill for the Future in ASEAN Report and Job Information Center held today on 17 June 2022. Please allow me to welcome and express my gratitude to all delegates here, and let me congratulate the ASEAN Secretariat for holding this event after such a long time of conducting the meeting virtually. I would also like to appreciate our partner ASEAN Foundation for making valuable activities, including research reports, which posed and collaborated with Plan International and Google Earth. Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, reminding us to the Goal 8 of the Sustainable Development Goal SDGs, adopted by the United Nations member state, calls for sustained, inclusive, and sustainable economic growth, full and productive employment, and decent work for all, especially for young people. The creation of productive employment, and in particular youth employment, remain a global challenge and top policy concern for many countries in the world. Developing young people is the key policy issue for ensuring the successful transition to the labor market and their access to career-oriented employment. Youth need to acquire the skill, knowledge, and attitude that will allow them to find work and cope with unpredictable labor market change. The unpredictable situation get more crucial when the pandemic hit the world of work and made the youth employment more marginalized even more before the outbreak. Considering all the facts above, we have to think about this situation holistically by identifying and mapping out three important elements, such as employability landscape of youth, the need for skill in the industry, and barriers to entering the job market. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, in tackling this issue, as we might be aware, ASEAN Foundation has conducted research on the current state of labor market in the pandemic era and the job market and skill demand in the future. The research report is trying to bridge the crisis we face by building an inclusive job information center which could be accessible for any youth employment, unemployment in the EMS region. Therefore, in this crucial moment, it is very important to us to enhance capacities and qualities of Asian youth, not only in acquiring the necessary skill to re-enter the workforce, but also to provide information that is needed for youth job carriers, job seekers to build back a sustainable and secure post-pandemic economy. In this occasion, ASEAN Foundation will launch a new platform named ASEANJobs.org, aimed to bridge labor market demand in ASEAN to support the recovery process of the labor market in the region, especially for vulnerable job seekers. In this regard, I also would like to inform that ASEAN Labor Ministers Program has launched some programs to contribute to the implementation of the promotion and the protection of youth employment, including demand-driven skills and inclusive labor market to support the safe platform, such as to studies report, managing technology implication for workers and employment relationship in ASEAN that lead by Malaysia, Vietnam, and regional studies on human development readiness in ASEAN. Those two studies report could be used as a reference to prepare Asian youth to be a future-ready oriented workforce with a globally competitive and resilient mindset. At the end of my remarks, I hope those study report and the platform cannot only be utilized by job seekers in the ASEAN regions, but also for all policymakers to build and produce an effective and efficient labor market ecosystem with the employability in landscape approach. In addition, for the private sector, this study report is also useful for creating job matching opportunities based on their need. In the future, I do hope our collaboration between SLOM and ASEAN Foundation could go along with interrelated programs. Finally, I wish the event will success and wish you all the best of health. Thank you for your attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Dr. Anwar, for your insightful speech. We are excited to inform that we will now launch the ASEANJobs.org website, which has the objective to help our youth to find cross-border job opportunities by bringing them closer to the employers from across the region.
To commemorate the soft launch of the website, we would like to invite His Excellency Ekapap Pantavong, Dr. Yang Mi Eng, and Ms. Isha Hanum Kresnadi to the podium. We would also like to invite the Board of Trustees, His Excellency Ambassador Yip Samnang and His Excellency Ambassador Aung Myo Min to the podium to witness the soft launch.
But first, let's watch a short video about the ASEANjobs.org.
On our mark, please press the buttons together. Are you all ready?
On the count of 3, please press the buttons. 1, 2, 3.
Thank you, Excellencies, Dr. Yang and Ms. Isha, for celebrating with us. You may now return to your seat as we continue to the next session of today's event.
To celebrate the launch of the research report, we will now play a launch video of the report, which we hopefully give a glimpse of what the research report looks like. Following the video, we will continue the event with a presentation of key findings from the lead researcher, the LOCA group. Without further ado, please enjoy the video.
Thank you. And we hope you all enjoy the video. We will now proceed with the presentation of the key findings of Mind the Gap, Mapping Youth Skills for the Future in ASEAN Report by the lead researchers from LOCA Group, Mr. Dio Tobing and Ms. Vicky Barreto.
Mr. Dio and Ms. Vicky, the floor is yours.
Good morning. Thank you very much. This is an honor for us to present the research along with bright minds in this room. But before all, we'd like to say hello and thank you. Greetings to Your Excellency, Deputy Secretary General, the ASEAN Socio-Cultural Community, Ekapap Fantafong, Ms. Yang Meeng, the Executive Director of the ASEAN Foundation, Ms. Dini Widyastuti, the Executive Director of Plan Indonesia, Ms. Marja Rolik, the lead for Google APAC, and Dr. Anwar Sanusi, Secretary General from the Ministry of Manpower, the Senior Labor Official Meeting Chair, Indonesia. So ladies and gentlemen, as you can see on the slide with the presentation that we have done the research. I think team from the ASEAN Foundation and Plan International have witnessed 9 months of concluding this research covering 10 member countries. Next, please.
All right, so we begin with the report from Google, collaborating with Temasek and Bain & Company. So these are the 5 leading sectors that already been in rapid growth even before the pandemic. So they are e-commerce, transport and food, or we usually call it gig economy, and then online travel, online media, and financial services. But during the last 2 years, we see that health tech and ed tech, or education technology, has a rapid growth across the ASEAN region. Continue to the next slides. Right, so based on that, we create a framework of skills that we use as the foundation in creating our quantitative and qualitative questions. They are digital skills, self-leadership skills, interpersonal skills, and cognitive skills. These 4 are synthesized from research from ILO, McKinsey, and World Economic Forum from 2020 and 2022. So we synthesize their indicators and create them into this framework of skills. So the objectives of the research, as has been mentioned a couple times before us, is that to investigate employability landscapes of ASEAN youth from 18 to 29 years old, and their barriers of underserved youth in securing a job, and map skills demand, especially after the pandemic, hopefully. And then the methodology that we employed is that quantitative surveys and qualitative. There are key II or key environment interviews, focus group discussion, and DAS study. Next slide. All right, so here are the methodology. So we, after data cleanup, we have 1,080 respondents. So we try to stay faithful to the equal representation of women and men, and also person with disability. So there are 50% of men, 49% of women, and 1% of others, and 16.2 disabilities. This is stay faithful on the ratio of person with disability across all ASEAN member countries: Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapore, Brunei Darussalam, Philippines, Myanmar, Cambodia, Vietnam, Laos, and Thailand. So we also have 320 FGD participants, quite a number. Underserved youth, young people from 10 ASEAN member countries were grouped by gender and disability status to explore their perceptions, opinions, feelings, and attitudes towards the finding from the survey. So we start from the surveys, then we continue with the qualitative sides. And we also interview 40 private corporations, from HR company, from tech company, from health tech. So we try to gather their information about what are the most demanded skills from the private sectors. And also we review more than 30 reports because we cannot do it on our own perceptions. We also use secondary sources In addition to our primary data collections, we have World Economic Forum, ILO, ADB, World Bank, ASEAN, United Nations, but also report from local countries because they have a different standard as well in their workforce. The next slide is that this is just a general overview of our background. So as we can see that youth experience triple shock compared to adult. In this case is that you can see that so the number of youth unemployment is growing, especially on 2020 and 2021. But we expect, and the trajectory from the Google report is that there is a decrease of youth unemployment in 2022 and 2023. Hopefully we can manage to fulfill the trajectory. Also, based on the ILO report in 2020, working hours in ASEAN dropped dramatically by 8.4%, equal to 24 million full-time workers, assuming a 48-hour a week. And then youth employment losses among ASEAN youth is 6.2%. So specifically on youth, there are 6.2% job losses across ASEAN, and 45% of job losses at the peak of the pandemic in 2020. Also a disruption of school to work, so there's a disruption from the graduates and to career stage, as has been mentioned by Ms. Maria Ralik before. So there are hiring freeze in 15 million youth across the ASEAN. Dio will continue to the next slides with our key findings from our reports.
Thank you. Next slide, please. Yep. As Vicky has already mentioned that hiring is freezing, and the ILO has already determined and suggesting that youth in ASEAN is experiencing the triple shock. Our report and research dives deep into this area as well to identify the skills potential mismatch between the job market and youth. So we also found in our research that 1 out of 4 youth in the wider Asia Pacific region, especially women, work in retail, manufacturing services, and food services, and hence suggest that the informal sector that they are employed with has been widely disrupted because of the global pandemic. However, independent working skills are on the rise. When we did the survey to the thousands of young people spread in ASEAN, we found that 2 out of 3 young workers have gained employment with interpersonal and self-leadership skills, in which later on the figure we will see in the next slides. And we also found when we interviewed some HR consulting firms in ASEAN region, the fact that the digital transitioning of world of work in ASEAN, young people does not need to also equip themselves with soft skills. So it's not necessarily about being digital native and able to operate systems in digital environment, but also because everything has gone online. We use, for example, Zoom for our online meetings, Teams meetings. Young people need to adapt to that in their soft skills as well, and communicating to their subordinates, supervisors, and their counterparts at work. We found in the research as well, this is a very highlight as well for the report, that 52.2% youth in ASEAN are proficient in basic digital skills, but 72.2% young people in ASEAN are not equipped with advanced digital skills. So with the automation disruption in several job markets, we see that there is a transition of job roles in ASEAN. Some roles are becoming extinct, some roles have emerged, and there is a gap that we need in terms of policy and upskilling and reskilling for young people to be able to fill that gap. However, there are notable barriers for young people to actually upskill and reskill, in which a lot of information are not widely distributed to young people in ASEAN to participate in training. We found 22.6% youth in ASEAN do not know how to join training, and country in Myanmar impacted the most in leveling of the 10 ASEAN member countries. There is also less inclusive trainings for young people with disabilities. For example, what we have now in the screen as well, how they could potentially join online trainings but also be able to communicate. And there is no facilitators, for example, for them to be able to communicate through the online trainings. Compared to the non-persons with disabilities, 70% of young persons with disabilities are not exposed to training information in the ASEAN region. And 1 out of 4 young people, which is 25% in Indonesia, are not allowed by their parents to attend skills training. We can later on see that there is a gender role as well, in which that young women usually face this kind of more compared to young men. Also, we found training are being expensive. In the later figure, we will show on how participations to private trainings are more likely than government afforded training. But with that being said, 15.6% had moved from their hometown. So they need to go out from their city of origin to actually be able to join training. And 36.1% actually complain that training is expensive in the ASEAN region. And in terms of reskilling and upskilling, we found that this is the most aspirations of young people that we found. 35.3% of ASEAN youth have inspiration to become an entrepreneur. And that leads to the necessity with the digital disruption we have to actually go digital with our businesses, small, medium businesses. Demand on digital skills are on the rise. 60.2% demand reskilling on basic digital skills to equip their currently missing skills on that front, and 52.5% needs training on advanced digital skills. Next, please. As we dive deep into the investigations of job positions through the LinkedIn report, there are currently 67 fast-growing job positions that requires digital skills proficiency. Out of that, 41 requires so. 12 of them required advanced digital skills mastery. And as we can see, actually, the advanced digital skills have not yet foreseen as young people in ASEAN to have equipped, to have helped them to secure a job. And why is this so? When we do the research in 10 ASEAN members, interviewing, doing survey to underserved young people, apparently a lot of them are not working in the digital environment yet, and hence securing a job in the skills was not foreseen as necessary for them. But as we found, they have already equipped themselves and found that soft skills, which are the self-leadership skills, interpersonal skills, cognitive skills, which are elaborated further what kind of the specific skills required in this report, are already sufficient enough to help them to strive in their working environment. In line with the research in the report provided by LinkedIn, we found hence a lot of gap actually in the advanced digital skills and basic digital skills. As we can see on the screen, most of them are still on the none to low level of proficiency. Next, please. In terms of learning behavior, as already been mentioned separately before, gaining skills from school, not TVET, not other means of acquiring skills, are still the domination for young people in ASEAN. 61% acknowledge that the skills that they have today is actually acquired from school. With that being said, actually, policy-wide, we need to actually intervene on that matter as well, on how curriculum is being changed and adapted to be able to provide more future skills for ASEAN young people. On the job training, they acquire the skills 40.2%, and so on for internship, mentoring, and training centers are in the below report.
Right, cross the number with ASEAN means to acquire skills and ASEAN challenges to take training. We can see that why there are a low number of people joining internship and mentoring is a matter of access and availability. That's why most of their answers are schools. Again, we'd like to remind you that most of our respondents are from underserved youth, so most of the training are coming from the schools which are free.
To highlight the training participation, so this is to split up the skills required from schools. Actually, nearly 50%, nearly 1 out of 2 young people in ASEAN have not yet participated in training out of their schools. So this is a matter of what Vicky has said before, access, to help them to upskill and reskill. And in terms of training participation institutions, private afforded training is still the domination rather than gaining skills from the public or government provided trainings. And in terms of challenges of training divided by gender and later by disability, we found, of course, gender matters. Young women have more difficulty to access training because of consent from their parents, for example.
Financial capability.
Lack of interest, lack of time, and lack of device. Challenges to training. We found that persons with disabilities have, as mentioned before, more lack of visibility of training, and also being that trainings are not disabled friendly, they are incapable of then participate in training. Next, please. As we dive deeper in the report and looking at how the 10 ASEAN members or youth in ASEAN members are facing these barriers, we found that in terms of the rankings, lack of information in Myanmar, Brunei, and Cambodia are on the top list, that that youth there have less of information to attend training. And in terms of affordability of training, Philippines, Singapore, and Brunei are being the most expensive as regarded by young people. And Brunei, Thailand, and Laos, youth there, they have less time to participate in training. Next, please. I think this would be the last slide as we dive upon. Sorry, there's another one. So this one, we found that during our numerous of FGDs, 320 FGDs, Yafiki, with a lot of them from disabled communities as well, most of their parents, along with young women as well, they feel reluctant in sending their children to these training facilities, as they are afraid actually that their children are not safe and in the training facility. They explain that there's a lack of communications of how their children will be taken care of those sessions if they send their children to the training facility. Also felt displaced and helpless is a common disappointment that we found in each country from qualitative research, which shows that young people with disabilities experience similar conditions where the material and especially the delivery method are not disability friendly. And in the job market, actually, we found that they are facing more discrimination than, I don't want to say normal, but just general non-disabled young people in ASEAN. Next, please. In terms of professional aspirations and skilling needs, we found that, as we mentioned, the three top career aspirations are entrepreneurship, government, media, and communication. We found in our research why entrepreneurship and government being the two top is because they want to be independent, given that the current pandemic landscape has provided a lot of layoff, for example, and we know that working for government is actually providing job security, and entrepreneurship provides them with more flexibility of work when they operate so. In terms of upskilling and reskilling, we found that the skills of upskill and reskill needed for ASEAN young people is basic digital skills, because nearly around half of them have not equipped them so, and they're not confident yet that they actually have already gained a highly proficient skills on basic digital skills. Cognitive skills, which is related to the ability to master their job, and critical thinking. Advanced digital skills related to automation, which requires them mastery of hard skills on this sector as well for them to actually operate some of the devices for them. For example, doing coding for artificial intelligence. I think that would be the highlight of our research. And for the policy recommendations, we encourage all of you to actually download the report. We have provided so there. We don't want to sneak peek it here. And thank you very much. We really hope that this research will provide a bright future for young people and we could intervene better for their upskilling and reskilling needs. Thank you so much. Good morning.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dio and Ms. Vicky. Please remain on the stage. We will now proceed to the panel discussion, Bridging the Future of ASEAN Youth, Supporting Youth Employment and Skills Development for an Inclusive Post-COVID ASEAN.
Please welcome our moderator for today's panel discussion, Dr. Yang Mi-Eng, Executive Director of the ASEAN Foundation, to come to the stage and have a seat. We would also like to invite our honorable speakers, Ms. Mega Irena, the Assistant Director, Head of Labor and Civil Service Division of the ASEAN Secretariat, Ms. Isha Hanum Kresnadi, the Government Affairs and Public Policy Manager at Google, Mr. Wafa Tatfazani, the Chief Executive Officer and Founder of UpBanks. Please, Mr. Dio and Ms. Vicky, please join Ms. Yang and all the panelists on stage.
We would like to remind that you may drop your questions to Slido, and please mention your name, institution, and the speaker you want to raise your question to. We will now hand over to our moderator, Dr. Yang Mi-Eng.
Hello, thank you so much, Marwa and Ayu. This is actually our last sessions of the day, and thank you for still staying put. So let me quickly introduce our special panels of this morning. So I will go for Ibu Mega Irena. Ibu Mega Irena is Assistant Director, Labor and Civil Service Division, ASEAN Secretariat. A little bit background on Ibu. Ibu Mega Irena supports the civil service matters and good governance to support the establishment of people-oriented, people-centered and rule-based ASEAN community, as well as ensuring the collaboration between the labor and civil service division and other ASEAN sectoral bodies and organs and external partners. So our second panel today is Ibu Isha Hanum Kresnadi. Ibu Isha actually is from the Government Affairs and Public Policy Manager at Google.org, and she holds a Master of International Affairs degree from Columbia University. Prior to her role at Google, Isha worked at UNTAC, focusing on FDI research and advocating for sustainable investment. So on my left now is our special guest, Pak Wafa Tatfazani. Pak Wafa is actually CEO and founder UpBanks, a very young man, inspiring young man. And he has a very impressive background. He has more than 10 years experience in technology, digital entertainment, corporate finance, public policy, and international relations. So Pak Wafa also founded the UpBanks. This is a very important a digital banking platform for content creators and brands. So Pak Wafa also holds an MBA from the University of Cambridge and also one of the founders of Modal Rakyat, a startup company that distributes capital loans to micro, small, and medium enterprises in the spirit of corporation entrepreneurships, as well as VC Gamers, a marketplace for gamers and MSMEs players who trade assets in the game ecosystem. So he's also a game person. It's a very good potential field for young people to join, actually. We will talk about it later more. Yeah. So, and of course, there's no stranger to us. You have just listened to our lead researcher from LOCA, Ibu Vicky, and also Dio, Pak Dio. So a little bit background. I think most people will be wondering who you guys are. Why are we working with you to produce a paper? All right. So Pak Dio actually is a lead researcher of Mind the Gap, Mapping Youth Skills for the Future in ASEAN, the report which is launched today. Dio is also a senior fellow with ASEAN Studies Center, University Gadjah Mada. And he also earned his LLM in Public International Law from Leiden University, the Netherlands, in 2018, with full StartNet scholarship from the Dutch government. Very inspiring. You know? Well done. Huh? So we also have Ibu Wiki. Ibu Wiki is a co-founder of Policy Lab Indonesia, and she currently holding a position as a consultant or policy advisor to the Ministry of Cooperatives and Small Medium Enterprises, and formerly the research manager on impact evaluation consultant for Facebook IT research, metadata solutions for qualitative and quantitative research. There are many, she has many experience working with different countries, different field in different countries. So welcome all the distinguished panel. And I would like to set the discussion background. What are we going to talk about today? This discussion panel will, the theme of the discussion is Bridging the Future of ASEAN Youth, Supporting Youth Employment and Skill Development for an Inclusive Post-COVID ASEAN. So we will also discuss the importance of supporting youth employment and skill development to establish an inclusive environment of job-seeking activities amid the COVID-19 pandemic. So the on-site panel discussion will also involve various different background people, government, public, private, and also researchers. So we are in the hope that today's discussion we will get a different perspective in terms of unemployment and the future trend. So let me jump straight to our first Ibu Mega Irena. The question will go to you. Ibu Mega, could you highlight the different tools and framework that initiated within ASEAN level which support youth employment and improve their skill development? And then, do you see any good practices in the region or among the AMS that support productive employment for youth and can also be used as a model for other member states to follow their steps? Can you share with us? Thank you. Yes, definitely. I think Ibu, would you like to? Yes. I think more people will be interested to get to know you after this. Sorry. Hello. Yeah, it's I think the battery. Is it? Hello? Yeah, working.
All right. First of all, thank you so much for this kind invitation. It's really an honor as I listen to you introducing the panelists. It's an honor to be here among the bright minds, cream of the cream. I have this opportunity to share with you the relevant work of ASEAN pertaining to youth employment. I think earlier as I heard about the outcome of the research, really these are some of the issues that labor and education sectors in ASEAN have been discussing for several years, even in pre-pandemic. Let me just highlight 3 frameworks in ASEAN that are really relevant, as I heard earlier, the research outcome. Number 1 is the ASEAN Roadmap on Human Resources Development for the Changing World of Work. There is a wide recognition by the education and labor sectors that we need to cultivate lifelong learning culture in ASEAN, promote employment of people, the workforce, including the youth and vulnerable groups, where throughout the transition in this changing world of work, there is a just process that nobody will be left behind. People would be equipped with skills that would be needed in future. And so this roadmap is important because for the first time, this roadmap is bottom-up approach, developed not only by the labor sector or by economic sector or by education sector, but these 3 ministries work together jointly, together with private sector and academia, including representative of university and TVET institutes, develop this roadmap. So we tend to believe that this roadmap represents different interests. And through this roadmap, the ASEAN TVET Council was established in 2022. So that's the second tool that I would like to highlight. Newly established, this council aims to be a coordination body in ASEAN to promote holistic approach in advancing TVET programs and systems in the region. This is important because if we look at our workforce, I think mainly are at the medium lower skills, where TVET, I think, play an important role as the backbone of our economy, and yet not yet well advanced. So there are still a lot of challenges here in terms of the image of TVET, the quality, the access, especially in the rural areas. And so I think that would be one of the important tools if we are to promote employability of youth. And thirdly, what is important as we talk about employment is not only the aspect of employability, but also productivity. We recently developed ASEAN Labor Productivity Index, where we adopted holistic variables, not just looking at labor quality, influenced by the quality of education and training, but we also look at the well-being of workforce in terms of their access to social security, healthcare, wages, and the functionality of labor market policies. So this inclusive index shows us that improvement of quality of human capital does not necessarily means the same level of productivity resulted across ASEAN member states. Different quality of human capital may lead to different level of productivities. So it depends on how government is able to manage well the human capital, influenced by the policies and also, as I mentioned, factors influencing well-being. So what I'm trying to say, as we are discussing about improving employment of youth, we need to integrate the discussion on their well-being, so that access to jobs is not just about getting jobs, but quality job, where their well-being is well assured. And therefore, this informality of employment still a challenge in our region. I think it's still predominant. A lot of workers still not yet receiving good access to social security. That's why in time of pandemic like this, many of them are really hit hardest. Yeah? When they lost job, that means they also lost their income security and social security. So I think I will stop there, and I would like to hear from others. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, Ibu, for this good sharing. And I will just say, it's very interesting to actually look into the productivity and the quality of the jobs. Actually, here we haven't really dwelled deeper into these elements. So this is something that we also need to look into, perhaps in our maybe phase 2 research. We do hope that Google is listening, Maria. So maybe we can have a second phase research project together, and we'll be looking into more deep dive into more pressing issues. I think what we are looking at now is a lot of superficial, surface issues. So tips of the icebergs. So what lies deeper, we haven't really dig deeper. So this has got to, maybe in future, we can work together between ASEAN Foundation and also, yes. And of course, we will jump straight now to question number 2 to go to Ibu Isha. Yeah? Ibu Isha, the COVID-19 has revolutionized and affected the way people work. Okay, I mean, all of us here knows. We no longer want to go back 9 to 5, I think. So that is also a very big challenge. So the report highlighted that digitalization will be a defining feature of the future job market, and young people will be one of the actors that need to be supported along this journey of transformation and the future of work-life balance. So what do you think the role of private entities such as Google could do in this to support this kind of transformation? Thank you. Can you put there first? it's on.
Okay. So thank you, Dr. Yang. Again, it's such a pleasure.
I think cannot hear. Okay. Yeah, it's on. No, off. Okay, I think we change mic again. Yeah, here. This is already on.
Okay. Right, this is on. Thanks again. It's such a pleasure to share the stage with such distinguished panels. Now, to your question, you mentioned youth is one of the actors. I think, at Google, we think youth are not just one of the actors. They're going to define future technologies. They're going to be the shapers and innovators. Now, if we speak about digital transformation and the future of jobs, today we understand that, there's like a long-term and short-term aspect of this. Like, we know that jobs change. It has always changed. Yet some of the fundamental skills that are required remains the same. And this I also heard from our colleagues at LOCA during their presentation. So critical thinking, leadership, communication, and empathy. These are sort of long-term education that we at Google also would we actively invest in those. For example, we have a partnership with Bebras. It teaches critical thinking for students and teachers using information technology, informatics framework. So decision trees for problem solving, for example. So, we see investing in those kind of education from early on, committing long-term, that will really help shape future digital talents. And on the second part, we're business. We are known to be agile and responsive. So, we understand that youth today also needs to be ready for the demands of their world. That's why we have skilling programs that last 3 to 6 months. This includes career certification on topics that are very relevant for the industry. So machine learning, Android, and technical support, data analytics, and all that stuff. It's 3 to 6 months. So sort of a, ready to use skills acquired in a relatively shorter time. And this is important, especially youth of today. They face the changes so rapidly. It's pretty much unprecedented. A certificate you have today in 9 months on technical skill will probably need a refresher. So, and another element is that we, to continuously upskill digital talents, we look at other parts as well, not just employment, but also we work a lot with startups and also small businesses. Again, this refers to the insight. This is very interesting for us, actually, that ASEAN talents, their aspirations are entrepreneurship. So we already we have invested a lot in that, because we have such big faith on the resilience and ingenuity, really, of ASEAN SMEs. Today, we've trained around 2 million SMBs, and to help them onboard to Google tools for to grow their business and reach more consumers. So that's about it.
Yeah, thank you for sharing this view. I think Google and many other organizations like ASME and all that under ASEAN sectoral side, the AEC side, has also put a lot of efforts in promoting SMEs, and then startups and all that. So I think most of us are in the right track, So, but I think the challenge now is whether we can reach out to the youth. You know, for ASEAN Foundation's experience, it's always about reaching out to them. And like what Loka has come out with the research, already confirmed, there are some kind of restrictions, unable to get the information either. No, there are multiple reasons for not able to reach out to them. Information breakdown. So I think maybe we have to also look into the infrastructures foundation of the technology, because we are moving very quickly to the front and we forgot, what is the foundation and basic needs of people to access to information. So digital divide is the issues that we have to also look into it. It comes together. So I think we will come back to that discussion later. So let me give these questions to Pak Wafa. Pak Wafa, the emergence of digital technologies may well have contributed to the decline in traditional sectors. And because of these changes, many people face the prospect of retraining to acquire the skill needed to access to the new jobs, new roles. So from your experience in the startups realm and digital technologies, what ideas would you recommend to help improve youth employment in our community?
Sure, thanks for the question. And again, really appreciate the invite to share my experiences here at today's event. I think the pandemic, with all its challenges, has brought much needed positive changes in the labor industry. Things like flexibility and workers becoming more aware of the need for beyond physical health, but also mental health, mental wellness, as well as personal financial wellness. More and more workers are paying attention to this. And today, especially young workers, they are less and less willing to tolerate workplaces that do not necessarily align with the values that they have in mind. They're less and less willing to tolerate toxic culture. They're less and less willing to tolerate policies that do not match their expectations. But at the same time, these are privileges that are available only to a select few young, qualified professionals who are able to pick what they want to do in the industry. The reality is that most young professionals and workers today in Southeast Asia are not granted these privileges. They do not have the necessary skills probably required by these fast-growing tech companies. And even if they have, typically for every one available role at any given tech company, you will have 500 to 1,000 applicants. This is our experience with hiring at Upbanks. Typically for every open role, engineering role that we have, we would have between 2,000 and 3,000 applications from Indonesia alone for one role, for one opening. So when we reject candidates, sometimes it's not because they don't have the necessary skills, not because they don't have the necessary certifications, not because they don't have the necessary experience, but simply because there aren't enough roles out there to cater to all the needs around employment for all the young workforce.
In the market.
There are not enough jobs. I mean, you can have 1 million certifications, you can have 1 million skill trainings and workshops, but if you don't have enough companies growing and hiring and opening up roles, creating jobs and opportunities for these young people, they won't mean much. Thankfully today, we're seeing in real time revolutions happening in the blockchain industry. It has never been easier ever in the history of humankind to launch companies. You don't even need to create a PT today to launch companies on the blockchain. You don't even need to register your company with the Ministry of Law or Human Rights or ACRA in Singapore to launch your own company on the blockchain. You can launch your company within hours if you know what you're doing, if you have the skills, if you have the right people to do it. So I would say blockchain is the key to solving the lack of economic growth that match our expectations in the region, and the lack of roles, the lack of jobs that are available for, I don't know, the 300, 400 million young workers that will basically join the workforce over the next 3 to 5 years or so. Because at the end of the day, if you look at the traditional industry, there are so many barriers to launching companies. There are so many barriers to hiring. There's so many, you have to consider things, like labor laws, right? You have to consider things like company registration, fundraising, etc. But the blockchain industry makes all of these things easier. But they're not with challenges. So you will see, obviously, scams. You will see fake companies. You will see low-quality companies and low-quality projects launching. But this is part of the process. And young people need to learn. They need to learn through failures. They need to learn through experiencing something that may not necessarily match their expectations, but then they will figure it out. They'll figure it out eventually. But it's a process that not just the workforce has to go through, but companies have to go through. Government agencies have to go through. It's a process. For me personally, I've been building companies over the past 5 years or so. I used to work at Google, by the way. I've never met Hanum, but I left back in December. But during my years at Google is so open to entrepreneurship that I actually launched 2 companies while I was working at Google. Wow. It's the kind of flexibility, exactly. It's the kind of flexibility that I think companies and government agencies need to pay attention to.
But Wafa, this one thing that you mentioned about blockchain, do you mean that if you can't find jobs for young people, then you might consider opening your own business in blockchain? Is that what you are trying to really create an alternative routes?
Yeah, I think because so many people were laid off during the pandemic, and I think so many people are being laid off the past month because of the recent dried up in VC funding. If there are no jobs in the market, you either become an entrepreneur or you become a content creator. For some people, that's an option. Or you maybe invest. Maybe you have some capital and then you day trade your capital with crypto or stocks or currencies, etc. These are the current options generally available to young people in the market. Blockchain makes it so easy for young people to launch companies, but it also enables them to earn money through, for example, trading. Mm-hmm. It enables them to earn money through short-term investing. Mm-hmm. It enables them to earn money through playing games. You might not believe it, but I have a friend at Google. We left at around the same time. He left Google to play to earn game full time because he's earning more in that specific game.
Yeah, this is actually another types of alternative, I would just say. Yeah?
Exactly.
Yeah, but again, we go back to today we're trying to look into labor market, the standard
labor market,
the standard labor market.
The traditional.
Yeah, traditional
labor market.
It's very hard to say whether it's traditional because we are in the transformation period,
Yeah.
So what we consider as old now, maybe last month, maybe new later. We never know. Things might go back to how it started again, resetting.
It's a cycle. So
yeah, it is a cycle.
Eventually, money will become cheap again. Interest rates will come down.
Yeah.
VCs will start investing again.
Yeah,
Companies and startups will start hiring.
For me,
again.
it's like, what do you think that is your advice for youth to prepare themselves to get a job? Like, for instance, I think I would just reframe what you have mentioned.
Yeah.
Perhaps blockchain's industry is one of the alternative industry that youth can search for jobs there.
Yeah.
Because, but there are different kind of skill set that they need to master before they can join blockchain. Because, sorry, the basic foundation of technology, they have to actually have at least advanced technology, digital knowledge. for them to actually go into blockchain industry.
Sure.
Because the programming language is different, you know, it's a totally different ball game.
Sure.
Yeah.
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 I think Mbak Isha Hanum brought an interesting point about how the fundamental skills remain the same.
Yes.
In many blockchain jobs.
Yes.
I mean, the only difference between the blockchain industry and the non-blockchain industry is how information is distributed and stored, right?
Yeah, decentralized.
Exactly, decentralization, transparency, anonymity, etc.
Yes.
Yes, some programming languages you will need to learn new programming languages. Instead of learning Java, now you need to learn Solidity, for example, right? But the fundamental skills remain the same, especially for non-technical jobs.
Yes.
If it's a blockchain marketing job, it's the same fundamental conceptual marketing skills. Right?
Marketing is still marketing.
Marketing is still marketing.
It's still selling. You know, certain skill is there to stay. You know.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's a people skill. Marketing is actually how you deal with people. You know, how you build the relationship, friendships. You know, so this is a different types of jobs. So there are many varieties of work out there.
Out there. Yeah.
You know, some stays, some have to upskill, reskill.
Yes.
So now we are also looking into the digital skill, so that the foundation skills should be there for them to consider to jump into specific field in the in the technology field, you know.
Exactly.
Yeah. So yeah, I think I will come back to you on that if we have enough time later.
Sure.
I'm sure the public, the viewer of virtual platforms, online, our Facebook and all that, can actually post some questions. Because we will take questions after finishing the discussion. We have two more panels here that we would like to hear from them. From local side, I think I'll pass the first question is, during the research, you are involved in working with many researchers across 10 ASEAN member states. I'm very well aware of the issues and challenges that we have because we work closely with local. So what is your main reflection and key takeaways from working with bright researchers from this region, different countries, different researchers?
Right.
Yeah,
thank you, Dr. Yang, for the questions. My questions will be slightly lighter than the questions than the other panelists. But the main reflections that me, Dio, and the other researchers we got during the research is that the research will not be completed without them. I have to mention there are many adversities during the research. I mean, the obvious global pandemic, typhoon, floods, political instability, but working with such bright and hardworking researchers across the 10 ASEAN member countries, the main reflections is that critical thinking is, I think, remain the key skills that we need. So during the research, we deployed this coding and stuff because they need to use the code to input the service and stuff. They're all smart, but most of the time we have to re-explain again why we're doing what we're doing. The technology is there, but the fundamental skills to utilize the technology into the correct directions still require critical thinking. So most of the time, what actually hinder the process of the research are the fact that we have to re-explain again to these researchers about the why part of the research, to plan deep within them that we need the research, and this actually helping you as well. So I think other than, of course, the digital utilization skills, I think we need to focus more on the soft skill sides. Because I think, during the time, I mean, heard from Mr. Wafu as well, that when digital skills has become the basic now, you have to own it, you have to equip by it. Yeah. So it's no longer a question, it's become an individual question to all of these researchers, you have to have this.
So you have researchers that wouldn't use digital skill?
No, all of them have it, all of them have it.
Mm-hmm.
That's why the main reflection has become that digital skills has become the basic. You have to have it. If you don't have it, then you cannot be part of the conversations of these technology transformations.
Yes.
In order to be transformed, you have to have the skills first.
But Vicky, this is, let's say that we are going to have, some of the research company out there, or agencies wanted to do research some more, with the 10 ASEAN member states. So maybe you have some tips for them, how to manage different types of researchers from different countries in AMS? Because do they have the same mental opinions, or
So
do
Afu
they
is smiling.
work differently?
Okay. Yeah, of course. While we keep saying that ASEAN is similar from one another, we're actually not, and on the workforce basis.
Yeah.
In a sense that some of them, yes, I mean, you have to put yourself in their shoes. I think empathy, is the very first step for you to understand the local context, and we cannot develop to better directions with empathy to these people. I mean, if we're talking to a researcher from Myanmar, for example, I mean, I cannot take them out from their context right now. And if we talk to people from the Philippines, for example, I mean, the typhoon, we cannot force them like you have to finish on certain deadlines. So I think that empathy, especially for global companies, when they have, workforce from all over the country, I mean, put empathy first for these young people. I mean, they have many adversities even in their daily basis.
That's why we take a little longer to
Yes, Dr. Yang.
to finish the project.
Yes.
Because it's not that we are sitting on it. As what mentioned by Vicky, is we have to understand the situations, the political and social and climate change. I mean, that happens beyond our control.
That's why we appreciate the initiative of ASEANjobs.org, because it cross boundaries, it situations boundaries. I mean, they can access it all the time, and that's what technology is, I guess, in the end of the time.
I mean that we haven't promoted it enough, the platforms. Maybe we can promote it now, Vicky.
Maybe you should hire, we call it key opinion leader now, Dr. Yang call.
Maybe we get Google to help us with to inject some technology inside that they can self-manage, and provide a free platform for people, a safe, free platform. Yeah, this is very key, because we are going to deal with a lot of data, very, very PNC, private and confidential data. So I will go back to, now we have covered all the speakers, but I have some little bit time, so maybe we have a quick go through with each of the speakers on your opinions. So I think that since we all have different kinds of panelists here, different backgrounds, so in terms of boosting multi-stakeholders collaborations, what will be the best way for us all to move forward? Maybe we start with Google first. Yeah, Ibusha.
Right. So the question is, what is the best way to collaborate? I think, this initiative is a great example of how interdisciplinary approach to a huge problem, a complex challenge. Talent gap is not a simple problem. Bhumika, probably you're the expert of this. Job matching cost is a big cost in any labor market. And we also need the insights. As business, we tend to, because we're responsive, we're quick on our feet, but we need the visions of international governmental organizations such as ASEAN. We need the government's reach and scale. We need academics to tell us, if we're heading the right way. We need civil society to help us navigate ethics, all the complementary things that will make a collaboration successful. So I think that's a long answer to your question, but again, it's these kind of collaborations, the shared responsibility you mentioned before, infrastructure. From our side, Google, for example, trains so many youth and SMEs, but in reality, when we go outside Jakarta in the bigger cities, internet connection is an issue. At the end of the day, there are still a lot of challenges like this that need to be solved together.
So these fundamental issues and preparedness, it's still there.
I think yes. If you
but
go outside
during this
Jakarta,
pandemic 2 years, is there any improvement? Do you notice any improvement?
In infrastructure, I would say it's still slow. However, apparently, since the pandemic, 60 million people came online. So even with
no matter how
sort of
they try their best to go
exactly.
online. Yeah.
Even with internet and let's say patchy in many areas, right? In Indonesia and I don't know in other ASEAN countries, 60 million people came online, and the forecast by 2025, the gross market value of the internet community is going to double from 2021. So there's immense opportunities, and you know, if we have a common goal,
hopefully it will be a cheaper package in future.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think there are various studies on how much you know, we pay.
Right.
You know, everyone pay
Right.
different rates. You know, some countries are
Right.
cheaper, some countries are exorbitant price.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
so I think hopefully the telecommunication sectors out there
Absolutely.
can play more role in this.
Exactly, and to that point is, you know, the role of the government is to provide a policy environment that facilitates this growth and our collaboration.
So incentives, some subsidies.
Could be, and again, it depends on each market and the problem, I guess. Yeah, access, that can be everything, subsidy.
We open up the partnerships call with the telecommunication companies. Maybe we can do something together,
Right.
So that we can, all of us here, stakeholders, can have a easier work, because the fundamental of the issues, preparedness, you know, of infrastructures is still the biggest challenge here. You know, no matter how much we do, we realize even in ASEAN Foundation we have the best programs, we design the best program with our partners, sometimes we can't reach to grassroots.
Right,
Yeah.
and this is probably where the insights matters,
Yes.
right?
Later we will
Yeah.
get Loka to share also
Absolutely.
their experience, you know, dealing with grassroots, you know, populations, youth.
Yeah.
So yeah, so of course, maybe we can listen to ASEC side. What is your view on this?
Thank you. You know, I will start by picking up one of the findings in the study. You mentioned around 70% of youth are lacking advanced digital skill. And 60% of youth have aspiration, wanting to learn. But if we look at the statistic, on the other side of the coin, ASEAN economy is actually 5th largest in the world combined. Our e-commerce is projected to reach $1 trillion by 2030. So we have high demand, desperate for more workforce with high digital skills. On the other side, we have aspiration without the bridge to meet the demand. So they can be really a full potential of supply of skilled workforce. So how do we go about this? I think there are 3 key stakeholders here. Governments certainly play an important role in providing enabling environment. As you said, narrowing the infrastructure gap, providing incentive to private sector. The academia certainly need to adapt the university and TVET curriculum to meet labor market demands, which is quite dynamic these days with digitalization, greening of economy, climate change. But also employers, the private sector should not be seen as employers only. They should also take part more actively in promoting education and trainings. I think investment in education and training should not be seen as costs. It should be part of sustainable business. And so it should be part of business models, especially among the small, medium-sized enterprises. And so issues such as apprenticeship, internship, I think as DSG Ekapap mentioned earlier, this should be embedded as in-company training so that there is opportunity for the existing employees to upskill. And also I think in collaboration with startups, super apps like Google, for example, we can provide more accessible online trainings that would be cheaper, even free, for anyone, even in the rural area, subject to availability of internet access, of course.
So it will be online,
Right,
online.
right. Online training is also important for employees like myself, for example. I acknowledge I need to improve my digital skills.
We all acknowledge.
Because it's constant
Yeah,
developing.
constant change and
But I
upgrading.
cannot afford to take leave.
True.
For 1 week or 2 weeks just for training. So we need flexible modules of online trainings where anytime we can access and upskill ourselves regardless age, regardless geographical location. So I think we need to make trainings more accessible and flexible, affordable.
And free, no?
Let's start with affordable.
Is it when people say free training, usually people don't appreciate it? Is it true?
I think not necessarily. Sometimes the problem, and I think your study also already detected, access to information. People are thirst for trainings, but not necessarily having information where to get those trainings, especially when they are in rural areas. Maybe many of them do not speak English, so many of the trainings are offered in English, which is also another barrier for those non-English speakers. That's right. So I think a lot of fundamental issues, as you said, need to really be addressed in our region in collaboration with those stakeholders.
There is a questions here from the public on the TVET. They want you to actually share more on the efficient solutions that in the ASEAN region have for TVET.
Right. This, through the establishment of ASEAN TVET Council, our vision is to improve the positive image of TVET. In our region, sadly, I think especially in the older generation, thinking that when their children go to TVET, it's like a second grade education in comparison to universities. While in developed countries such as in Germany, Switzerland, Austria, Korea, Japan, and many others, TVET training, education and trainings are already regarded quite highly. In fact, there are CEOs of companies graduate from TVET. And so I think the image of TVET needs to be changed. And how we do that? Through the TVET Council, we develop programs, work plan until 2030. One of them is to really promote inspirational stories of the graduates of TVET, promoting information about TVET and the benefits, and also promoting career development of the TVET graduates, among others. And so
But
this is...
what about the view of the employers towards TVET graduates?
There has been a shifting of mind among employers because nowadays, of course, credentials for some more conventional employers, they are still regard those as important aspects. But I think more and more employers now looking for workforce who are ready to enter job market with skills needed, regardless the educational and training background. And so that is, I think, a transition period that we need to tap fast.
Yes. I
by
think
promoting
that is a very good
TVET,
effort that you are doing, ASEAN Secretariat side, because the impression on people is very important, whether they want to hire TVET or they will prefer to hire foreign graduates, degree, So sometimes, previously it was like that, So that's why the perspective has to be shifted, in the employer side when they do the hiring.
Also, if we look at our region, I think the economies are driven by manufacturing services, including tourism. These are the some of the sectors that were hardest hit by COVID-19 pandemic. And so by supplying these industries with really medium-skilled workforce, graduate from really good quality of TVET institutes, I think we are improving the comparative advantages of ASEAN economies, making us even boosting ASEAN combined as a region in the world economy even stronger. Yeah, so I think even at this supply chain level, ASEAN is still struggling in comparison to other companies, how to attract more foreign investment to our region. And one of the ways to do that is really to strengthen our TVET Institute so that we could supply the middle skilled workers really with high quality, high productivity, and yet of course with wages that would be meeting their minimum standards.
Yeah, I think that is actually a very good suggestions and plan. It's already in your 2020 plan. So I hope that we will be able to churn out sufficient skill that match the demand of the employers industry. So I will go to the questions to just now the same questions on collaborations.
Sure.
So what is your view on this matter?
Sure. I think collaboration will work when each of the parties also have assume and fulfill their respective responsibilities. So for example, from government side, we need conducive fiscal and tax environments for companies to grow so that companies can create more jobs and hire more people, etc. Private companies, they need to start growing responsibly and sustainably. They need to focus on providing high quality jobs and making sure those jobs are secure. These days it's very easy for companies to lay people off when certain things happen. Obviously we want to see more sustainable growth across different companies,
so the
especially startups.
of the rights of the workers.
Exactly, and if there are many new roles created and there are many new people getting jobs, but also at the same time we see more and more layoffs happening due to unsustainable spending and basically not very wisely planned a growth plan, etc., then it will hurt the economy overall, right? And from the investment community, they also start to need to focusing on more sustainable growth as opposed to extreme rocket ship growth that we have seen over the past couple of years. The world has changed, interest rate environment has changed. So venture capital firms also have responsibility here to ensure how the companies that they invest in adhere to these high quality ESG standards, making sure they provide high quality jobs, focusing on sustainable growth as opposed to extreme short-term growth meant to pump up valuations so that they can sell their shares, etc. So all of these different players need to assume and also fulfill their responsibilities first before they even can consider collaborating. In terms of collaboration, there are many things that we can do here. I mean, typically, there's a reason why you see most tech unicorns based either in Singapore or Indonesia. These are typically markets that are developed and large enough to provide the valuations that companies need. But we also need to start broadening the bull market, so to speak. We need to start seeing more tech centaurs and unicorns coming from countries like Vietnam, Thailand, right? Cambodia, Malaysia. Most of the unicorns today are based in Singapore and focusing on Indonesia as the primary market. But this market needs to be broadened out. The customer base needs to be broadened out. The client base needs to broaden out. The production base needs to be broadened out.
So they can create more jobs in different AMS in the
Yes,
region.
because if you see more growth, if you see more demand, if you see more customers being served, then you will need more people
so the
to
system
serve
has
those
to
customers.
be very enabling the progress of companies also.
And I think ASEAN has a role to play here. I mean, I don't know how influential ASEAN is in, for example, influencing policies around regional expansion, taxation, hiring,
they are
right?
actually
Company
under the
acquisition.
AEC,
Exactly.
under the AEC, there is a lot of and incentives and collaboration when it comes to business spheres.
I think that's great.
Yes.
And I think lastly, there needs to be a coordination on how many people do we want to train and equip with skills in relation to how many roles are available in the market. So you need to think of this in terms of supply and demand. If there are too many people with skills and trainings and experiences necessary without the roles to hire them, then you will see employers having the edge to lower down wages because they have plenty of alternatives in the market.
But the market is always able to balance itself, isn't it?
if you believe in the market rebalancing itself, I think what we've seen over the past couple of years have not worked out so well.
Okay.
If we leave it simply to the market, I think there needs to be a very strong coordination here around, for example, the number of companies and the number of roles being created have to align with how many people that we equip every year with skills, relevant skills that are necessary. We don't want to have, for example, too many idle labor force available, ready to fill up jobs, if companies can simply use them as leverage to drive down labor costs, because this happens. And I'm talking here from the perspective of a young person maybe trying to look for work, not as an employer, because as an employer, I would want my labor costs to go down.
There is
right?
one issue that always I hear from outside is the company say, I couldn't find right people. And then, I couldn't find the right candidates, you know.
Exactly.
And then here we are talking about they don't have jobs. So the mismatch.
The mismatch.
Yeah,
exactly.
there's a mismatch here. So I just want you to have quickly, because of the time,
Sure.
What is the solution that you suggest for the mismatch?
Young people need to be more open to doing multiple roles, maybe even multiple jobs.
Multitasking, you mean?
Multitasking. There is no other way for you to develop the skills
Is
and
everyone
knowledge.
good in multitasking? I think that goes down to the
You don't need-
the personal, the person himself, whether they are good in
I mean,
multitasking.
you're not going to be expected to multitask for the rest of your career, right? Like for example, I multitask.
The entry level, you mean?
I multitask between, for example, 3-4 different companies for the past 5 years. But once I figure out that, yes, this is what I want to do now, I can stop doing those quote-unquote tasks that I don't find necessary anymore.
So youth better equip themselves with different kinds of skills
They
so
have
they can
to.
do many things.
Because there's no way for you to predict the future. You cannot predict the future. You can create the future. And one way you can do it is to try to equip yourself with as many skills as possible, as many experiences as possible. So when the opportunity arises, you have the skill, you have the experience.
Okay,
and that is
I
what
have
luck
to,
is.
Yeah, I have to cut you here because
Sure.
it is actually very interesting. During this VUCA time, volatile, uncertain time, better equip yourself with more needed skill. So we already have the list. So now the questions go to Loka on how to collaborate and also to expand continue from where we have left behind with Pak Wafa. Yes.
Sure. Yeah. I think just to add to the point made, I think currently I believe the ASEAN Foundation is on the right track actually with this kind of research being enabled. And with the other project going with Google as well, we are informed as well with the ASEAN Digital Literacy Program, for example. We understand that in our research, access is key. Access is key because we have a plenty of trainings, for example, available in ASEAN, but not all actually exposed to this. Well, actually, flow of information during the pandemic is actually like we're getting big chunks of information, and I'm a strong believer that this is actually grasped by young people in ASEAN. The question is, what are the information that they are exposed to, right? And when governments are unable to provide access, but they can provide masses, for example, collaboration with private sectors are key. Knowing that the skills Baisha mentioned that the private sectors are known to be agile, to be able to catch with the current skills needed, and they know how to transform the young people into the skills. Then perhaps the skills are coming from the private sector, the government does the massification. These kind of collaboration is needed and to escalate.
That means everyone do their most specialized part, not do everything.
Not do everything,
yeah,
exactly.
So that means that collaboration means you do your best, the private do your best, government do our best.
Yeah. And just to add to your point on how do we touch the grassroots, right?
Yes.
Working with implementing partners are key, collaboration as well. Knowing that, I don't want to say that ASEAN is not known in all ASEAN member states, but when we do research, it is also revealing when we try to introduce what we are doing, it comes from a higher level, right? And we partner, for example, with CSOs to interview them about the young people's skills needed and job demands in the market. And it's quite revealing to know that they're not exposed to these kind of opportunities and what ASEAN, Ibu Mega mentioned about the TVET Council, for example, right? So, you know, providing the access is key to them to transform with all the access to digital technology that they have. How many times they spend each week on the digital platforms, social media? How do we then connect with the algorithms to provide training, for example? These are things that we can collaborate between the government and private sectors to provide more access to young people in Southeast Asia.
Vicky, have anything to add on?
Just a bit on that, about collaborations, that I just wish that the government more focused on the fundamental things about security of jobs, the safety net, meaning that the youth can venture out comfortably. Most of them, I mean, even 20% of our youth are living under the poverty. So talking about choices and options is sometimes out of questions for them. So if we talk about collaborations, it just ways that even the private sectors also pay attention to these kind of things, that some fundamental things need to be addressed first.
But Vicky, maybe before we just jump into different level, what do you think of the challenges on people with disability and also women, you know, because our research found a lot of challenges and roadblocks for these two groups. So what is the suggestions and solutions from these reports that have been given?
Yeah, Dio would might be add something on this, but just a little bit on that part is that it's quite disheartening moment when we analyze the data, especially for women and person with disability during this research, is that person with disability, most of them, they cannot access the training, not because it's not available. It is available, but it's not accessible for them. The material that being delivered in common way. So they use online material. So this is maybe also a hope from the researcher to the private sectors, also the employers and for the government as well. In providing these trainings, we hope that you also consider that person with disability needs special requirement as well.
Can I just ask one thing? I mean, this might be outside than the solutions that we have suggested.
Yes.
Whether in future, I would like to see that the private sectors, when they want to hire people with disability, maybe can consider virtual interview only, and also maybe to go to their, you know, the place nearer to them. You know, instead of the candidates go to, you know, try to take 2 buses, 1 taxi and then train and all that. I know how difficult. Accessibility is one of the biggest challenges for people with disability. So is there any like different kinds of approach?
So we talk with the some of the HR consulting about hiring person with disability. It's very interesting that so this HR consulting give recommendations to these big companies, say that certain positions are actually available for a person with disability. So some position, you know, they don't require hearing, they don't require seeing. So, you know, make these positions with quota, especially for the person with disability. We need this affirmative approach to this person with disability, because without leveraging steps of ladder for them, I don't think they will have a certain same of opportunity, you know, with the other candidates of employment. So, Dio, you might add something.
Just to add on that, Ms. Yang, for example, customer service kind of skills, right? When we have ticketing issues, we try to phone Traveloka, for example, as a company to change our tickets. These kind of skills are not do not need visibility, right? The skills on that. So you just need to listen. You have to understand what you're doing. So these are kind of, for example, jobs are available for those who have blind.
It can be custom made to them.
It can be custom made to them.
Yeah, it can be packaged in such a way that it is custom made to their needs. I think because of the time, I'm so sorry that we have to stop here, the discussion. seeing that we just only have a few seconds more. So I will just wrap it up quickly. Thank you so much for all the speakers, for your invaluable sharing today and your time spent here. So thank you, Loka, for your great work. This is really going to be our roadmap, our Bibles for our future, so that we can plan a better policy, better support for people with disability or marginalized group or people or youth people who lost their jobs, who needs more opportunity. So thank you very much, Wafa, also for all your views. And we pass back to Marwa and Ayu.
Would like to convey our sincere gratitude for all our speakers, guests, and participants for joining this event. We hope that the event today has been meaningful for everyone.
Also, don't forget to dive into the research report and our job information center at aseanjobs.org to find career opportunities without barrier. We also invite all employers across ASEAN to join us on aseanjobs.org to bridge youth to a brighter future.
Also, we genuinely appreciate your favor to fill out the evaluation form. You can simply find it through the QR code or link presented on your screen for the guests joining us virtually and your table for guests participating in the venue. Your input matters.
It has been an honor for us to host this event today, and we truly enjoyed the wonderful time we had together in the past 2 hours. Thank you all for joining, and we hope to see you again in the upcoming events. We wish you all good afternoon.
Stay safe and thank you.